now.
I wanted to make sure I didn't have to do that, so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Donna. Nice to see everyone's names. I don't see any faces, but, well, I see Tessa. Thank goodness.
I don't know how much of a benefit that is for you, but
it's a benefit. So there's a question in the chat for you if you're just coming into our session. I'm going to read some of these as people are introducing themselves. Good morning, this is Noreen Holmes. I teach ESOL in Apollo's Leipzig location. Sorry if I said that wrong. Many of my students are parents of K-12 students. Christy Elliott is program manager for the State Aspire office. Hi, Teresa. Teresa, there's a question in the chat for you.
So the question is, I think if you've come in, we've all come in after the fact, so I can't see the question, okay. But I think people are hopefully still introducing themselves.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So if you can see the question in your chat, just introduce yourself. I'm interested, and I'm sure we're all interested in where your students are from, what you teach, where you teach, what program you're part of. Okay, Marilyn is an ESOL instructor for LCCC adults. She does Zoom with her students 4 days a week. Jody has all Spanish speakers from Guatemala, Mexico, and Dominican Republic. Great. So interesting to see where everyone's from. Just give us another minute or two to let some more people log on.
Yep.
Hi, Teresa. Thanks for turning your camera on. Teresa, can you introduce yourself in the chat? Hi, Michelle. Welcome. Hi, Christina. Marilyn says all her students are Hispanic. She has a Syrian couple that also speak Arabic. Hello, Regina. Hello, Wendy. Kay Ross or Cross, welcome. Teresa teaches for the Delaware Area Career Center. At this point, she has no Spanish speakers. She is African, Vietnamese, and French. So great. Thank you guys all for sharing a little bit, and you can continue to do that as you come into the meeting if anyone else is still coming. I am so honored to be speaking this morning. My name is Liz Franduti, and I am an EL teacher at Buckeye Valley Local School District. That is a rural school district north of Columbus. This is my first year teaching there, and previously I worked at the Delaware Area Career Center teaching adult English learners. So I kind of feel this unique place where I feel like I'm still in between two worlds. And when I started my job this year, I had I think a different perspective because I was seeing the parents of my students as kind of part of my responsibility also, because I'm used to working with adults and helping them, find their place, helping them learn and grow, learning from them. So I felt really excited to kind of have been in both worlds and to be in both worlds still. So that is why I felt inspired to offer this topic. And I hope that I can learn from you guys as well on some things that are working in your classrooms. We're going to start today with a little poll. I'm going to share my screen and direct you to a website called Mentimeter. If you can go ahead and open up a new tab on your computer and answer the questions that will be on the poll, we can get some more information about each other. I'm really curious what's happening in everyone's program with everything turned upside down right now. If you can see at the top of my screen, I know it might be a little bit small, go to www.menti.com on a separate tab and use the code 8220034 to get onto the website Mentimeter. And the first question that I'm curious about for everyone in our session is, what is the current status of your ESOL program? Tessa, I'm just confirming that my screen share is working.
Yes, and I put the website and code in the chat if it's easier to cut and paste for participants. I think it just takes a second for everyone to get to the website. So
Of course, thank you. Just double checking because sometimes screen share is a little finicky.
Yep, you are all good.
Good. If you haven't used this tool, Mentimeter, it is so easy. It's free. And it's a really interesting way when you're presenting, when you're doing a presentation on the computer. It's a really interesting, fun way to do a poll. This is cool to see. Half of you so far are doing hybrid classes. Half of you are doing virtual only. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question on the Menti poll. What is the current status of you as a teacher and as a person? Some of us feel like our lives have been turned completely upside down. Some of us are feeling okay. Maybe it's just day to day. One day you have energy, one day all the anxiety and all the frustration that's just everywhere in the atmosphere right now can really start to weigh me down occasionally. I think the fact that you showed up for this conference today means this is probably a sample of people that are having some energy and ideas because you're here. So I suppose more than one of these could be, many of these could be true at the same time. Okay. Okay, thank you guys for sharing and being honest there. It looks like everyone who's commenting so far is definitely affected by the pandemic, but still has something left to give students. Let's go to the next question. This is the last one. I'm curious about your top priorities for your students right now. It's hard to pick, and it's probably hard to put these in like a value order, because this could be changing day to day, and it probably depends on your student population, probably depends on your individual students. But when you see your students, what is most on your mind with them right now? This is really great information, and notice how emotional well-being is staying at the head of the pack there. So we definitely have our more academic things down at the bottom, and the more human things, heart things, up on top. Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. So let me get back to being able to see you all, or some of you that have your cameras on. I think that picking priorities is really difficult right now because everything is a mess. People's lives are a mess. Maybe our lives are a mess. And when we're getting up to teach every day, knowing what's most important is tough. But I think the fact that, like, again, the fact that you guys picked this session shows that K-12 education must be of significant importance to your students. So I'm really glad that that is in your priorities for them, to help them navigate their child's education. I think prioritizing school is really important because it's strengthening the families of our ELs, of our adult students. And if we strengthen their families, we're doing something really important for their emotional well-being. I'm curious what your adult learners are saying about school. What are they saying about their children's education? If you have a minute to put in the chat what you're hearing from students, or actually if you want to take a second to unmute and tell me something, tell all of us something that you're hearing from your students about their children's education, I think that would be really helpful to get us started. So either in the chat or feel free to unmute. Teresa. Teresa, we can't hear you yet. Still can't hear you. Come back in a minute when you get your sound troubleshot. Is there anybody else that wants to share something that you've heard from your students, or Danielle, go ahead.
Hey, nice to see you this morning.
Nice to see you.
So my students are having a really difficult time just understanding how to navigate the virtual world. They don't have the English capacity or the computer literacy to be able to understand. And so now they're having to be responsible for assignments, and it's just really over their head. So that's been really, really hard and extremely difficult right now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm hearing the same thing from my parents. Yeah. Anyone else want to comment? Teresa, I hope I can hear you at some point.
Liz, you have some comments coming in on the Whova app. Jennifer says that her students seem to like their kids' remote schooling, and that her students are actually very tech savvy. And Michelle says most are concerned about their health and safety, Most Indian students have kept their students virtual, their kids, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Overall, they're worried about their students not receiving the same level of education and falling behind.
That's a great comment. That's a great comment. And it's interesting too, depending on your population, where your students are from or how long they've been here, the disparity in tech skills. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Thank you for sharing that. Teresa said, one Worthington teacher masked up and came out to an apartment complex and worked with everyone to answer the computer questions in the courtyard of the complex. She gets a star. That's cool. That is really nice to hear that. Feel free to keep commenting if you have something that you want to share regarding your students and what they're saying about their children's education. I'm gonna navigate to screen share now. An organization called Abriendo Puertas recently during the pandemic surveyed Hispanic parents about economic, health, and educational concerns. And I don't think these findings are really surprising. They didn't surprise me. In fact, I would have expected the numbers to be even higher based on what I'm hearing from families. But you see that the numbers are really high in what families feel they, at least this population feels they need. More help with tech support, more tutoring for their children, and more help creating a learning schedule at home. I read this in a really great document called Supporting English Learners in the COVID-19 Crisis from the Council of Great City Schools, which is kind of a consortium of schools in Northern Ohio in the Cleveland area. Again, this would not be new information for any of you, but I felt they said it really well. As the nation grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, the families of English learners have experienced disproportionate distress with the shuttering of schools and the economic crisis. I'm sure many of you are seeing that with some of your students. How well do you think your local school districts are doing right now in supporting English learners? We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm just curious from what you've heard. Put a number in the chat between 1 and 10, with 1 being poor support and 10 being excellent support. Oh, we're seeing really low numbers, really low numbers. And I did want to make sure that my heart is not to point fingers at anyone. I just want people to have what they need to make it through this time. I want students to be learning. I want parents to feel supported. So this isn't about saying schools are bad or anything, but it's interesting to see that some of you have seen that people don't have what they need to school their children. 3 for younger children, 7 or 8 for older students. That's a really good point, that for the younger ones, the virtual learning is not as effective. Are you seeing anything else in the other chat, Tessa? Hi there, James and Evie, Christy, Barbara, Jennifer. Some of you guys came in. I didn't catch you, and I know some of you, so I'm really glad you joined today. All right, thanks for those of you who weighed in on how school districts are doing in your area. I have, let me get back to my slide here. I have just 3 fairly simple-ish, 3 proposals, I guess, of ways that we can help our adult students with navigating school. And when I think about how we can help support them, these words came to mind: practical and accessible. Practical, accessible ways for adult educators to help EL parents in navigating this world. Because we're all trying to navigate our own life. We're trying to help our own children. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to get through a really rocky time too. So we really need to find ways that are accessible to us. These are the three areas that I think can make a difference in a way that's not terribly hard and won't require hundreds of hours on your part. The first way I think can be really important and effective with parents is educating them on their legal rights as English learners. And we're going to look at some documents from the Department of Education. There's legal rights for limited English proficiency parents, and there's legal rights for English learning students. And I think I wasn't aware of all of these in the amount of detail that I needed to be until I got into the school system. So it's possible that it will be helpful for us to just look at those documents and see what some of those legal rights are. This second area is teaching digital literacy skills. And I noticed when we did the Menti poll that digital literacy skills came in on the very bottom of the priorities for our students. And I get it. There's so many other things that it's kind of triage in a lot of areas right now. But digital literacy, I think, can really help our parents connect the dots with the schools. And the third way doesn't involve doing anything. It just involves being yourself and bringing what you bring to students. And we'll talk about that briefly as well. So let's start to briefly unpack number one, educating parents on their legal rights. We're going to look at actually a website with a lot of really great information. I'm going to start with the link on the bottom here. It's a Department of Justice fact sheet about public schools' obligation to limited English proficiency parents. And the neat thing about this document, it's available, it's kind of a question answer format, and it's available in a lot of different languages. So I'm going to gather all these links, all these documents for anyone who wants these after my session today. I posted these 3 documents from the US Department of Education on the Whova site, but there are some other things that I'm going to share that I can collect in an email for you afterwards. So down here on this page, there are several fact sheets that are really helpful. This one is for limited English proficient parents, and it talks about their legal rights in the school system. If you end up going to the website that I'm on right now, there's a link here for other languages, and I think that this exact document is available in about 10 languages. So let's, to make things a little easier on ourselves today, look at the English one. This is information for LEP parents and guardians and for schools and districts that communicate with them. So this is a manual of your students who have kids in the schools. These are their legal rights as parents of English learners and parents who have limited English proficiency. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to hit just a few of the highlights. Must my child's school provide information to me in a language I can understand? Yes, schools must communicate in a language you can understand. This includes, but is not limited to, information related to all of these bullet points. So you can just take a look quickly and see all the areas that your students should be getting comprehensible input from the school. That's a lot, and they deserve that. They need to know what's going on. They should know about gifted and talented. They should know about parent-teacher conferences. They should know about after-school programs in their language. Must the school provide language assistance if I request it, even if my child is proficient in English and I am somewhat proficient in English? So yes, so even if the child who is fluent in English doesn't test into the English learner program, the parents should still be receiving comprehensible information from the school. May my child's school ask my child, other students, or untrained school staff to translate or interpret? This is a big one that I know Teresa is really passionate about. We shouldn't be relying on older siblings. We shouldn't be relying on friends. We need to be having professional translators that know all the academic vocabulary, all the words about school plans, and we need people that have all of that vocabulary that are professionals to be translating. What information should I expect from the school if my child is an English learner? And then it goes on a little bit about how schools identify parents with limited English proficiency. What steps must school districts take to provide effective language assistance to LEP parents? This talks about interpreters need to be free and they need to be provided by appropriate or competent staff or outside resources. They need to have knowledge in both languages of specialized terms, not just, oh, I can speak Arabic. You need to have all the right vocabulary to be a translator that is legally acceptable. What can I do if I have questions, want additional information, or believe a school is not complying with these requirements? So there's some numbers here, and I'm certainly not advocating that we go out and try to zing schools during COVID that aren't doing a good job with this. But I think that if parents knew what was available to them, that they would be able to ask for what they need a little bit better. And I think that adult educators have an important job to kind of help our parents know what they have, what's available. I'm going to go, we are not going to read this other document, but I do just want to show you that there's a similar document to the one I just shared. And again, the links for these are on Whova, and I will also provide them for you on email. Incidentally, this document says, and this is a few years old, that EL students are 9% of public school students. But this document is this similar to the one we just read, but these are all of the rights and resources that are available for EL students and what the schools must provide for them. So when you have time, you could look at that one later. It's very interesting.
Liz, you have a question in the chat that says, so does that mean information in writing or a call from a bilingual person communicating the information orally? And this is referring back to the parents.
It could be either, because some limited English proficiency parents also are not literate. That probably isn't the vast majority of them, but it really is up to the school to determine the best way to communicate with the families that they understand. So if it's a phone call, if it's something oral, then that's what we should be doing. I hope that that answers the question. If not, let me know. Is there anything else in the chat there, Tessa? In Whova?
No, that's it so far.
Okay, great, thanks. There's one more document related to like the school's legal responsibility to both the limited English proficiency parents and the EL students. That is, it's specific to COVID and like how schools can be serving families during COVID. So let me find that document quickly, because of course my screen share is in the way of my tab. Here we go. Okay, this one is a recent document from May 2020. And this outlines the state's responsibility to English learners and their parents during extended school closures, and in some cases, a move to remote learning due to national emergency. So the questions on this that I think are most relevant to us in this discussion today are down towards the bottom of this document. A lot of this has to do with testing, and I think it would be more of a guideline for the school. But if we go down to the bottom, specifically question 5, must a school district provide remote learning? Must a school district providing remote learning provide language instruction service to ELs? So yes, if the kids were getting language instruction at school, they should be getting language instruction during remote learning. And this goes into some specific, not really detailed information about how to do that, but that students should be receiving language instruction specific to them. The department recommends during remote learning, EL teachers continue to provide instruction to students who are previously self-contained or in pull-out models. The department encourages parents, educators, and administrators to collaborate creatively to continue to meet the needs of ELs. So I encourage you maybe later to glance over this document and see if there's anything in here that can help your students understand what kind of could and should be happening. And if it's not happening, maybe come up with a plan to get them some more support, because sometimes they're going to fall, unfortunately, they may be slipping under the radar if they or someone isn't saying, wait, this student is not getting what they need in this time during remote learning. If operating remotely, what is the minimum number of hours a day or days in a week the school must provide English language services to ELs? There is no amount of time, they're not being that specific, but the point of the document is that these students should still be receiving support like they would in school from their school district, from their English learner teacher or teachers. It talks a little bit about if they don't have technology. This is interesting because this has actually been true a little bit with some of my students, where technology itself poses a barrier to access or where educational materials are not available in an accessible format. Educators may still meet their legal obligations by providing ELs equally effective alternate access to the curriculum or services provided to other students. In some cases, this may be accomplished, for example, through hard copy packets, teacher check-ins, or tutorials. So I'm just going to leave that at that, and you can have access to these documents to look at later.
Liz,
so,
you have sorry to interrupt. Just want to make sure you got this question. There's a question on whether this also applies to charter schools.
Teresa, that's a really good question, and I don't know. I don't know about that. So that would be something that my area is public school, so I don't really know how the law affects charter schools. I would imagine it's similar because they are getting the tax money in many cases for their school. If someone knows that specific question, feel free to jump in. Okay, so I want to put my slides back up because there has been a little bit of legal action in this area. And again, I'm not at all advocating for everyone to get wound up and go, try to get schools in trouble for not doing what they're supposed to do, because we know everyone's scrambling. We probably are with our students as well. I think my bigger point, rather than being vindictive or trying to trying to hurt schools to force them to do what they're supposed to do, is more that sometimes when we notice that something's missing, a student's not getting the help they need, a family's not getting translation, they have no idea what's going on. Sometimes our role as advocates is enough to get that going, that we can step in and say, in a way that's accessible, not hours and hours and hours, but send an email. My adult student does not understand the logins. They don't understand the learning management system. Can we set up a meeting to help them? And just getting the ball rolling as an advocate, I think, is a really important role that adult educators can play. There was a complaint by the ACLU filed against Fresno Unified School District in California, and the complaint was that the district failed to eliminate language barriers for parents. The district refused to use Zoom. Now, I don't know, there were issues with Zoom because it was getting hacked, and a lot of school districts started using Google Meets and other sharing software. So I don't know if maybe they weren't using Zoom, but they were using something different. I'm not sure. They failed to provide accurate translations, and they failed to communicate with parents in a comprehensible language after the COVID closure, during the COVID closure. So the school district had to remedy the situation. And these were the areas where they had to fix something. The teachers and the staff were trained in cultural competency, individual learning plans for ELs, counselors, more funds, professional translations, again, seems to be something that keeps coming up as extremely important, and a plan to address the complaint. So in summary, educating LEP parents on their legal rights is really important. And I think it's a job that it doesn't have to take hours and hours. You may be able to just make sure your parents know and check in with them. How's it going with, you probably are already doing this, but how's it going with school? Are you getting the information in your language? Do you need anything? Are you meeting with a teacher? Do you know what your kids are supposed to be doing? And I just feel great knowing some of you personally that you're out there helping your students access all these things. So let's go now to the second way that I think adult educators can play a huge role right now in connecting your adult students with the kids' schools. Again, this was one that showed up as the last priority for most teachers right now. Teaching digital literacy skills. I think that there's ways that you can do this, probably already doing this, and even if you don't see the benefits, you are helping your students to bridge that gap between them and the K-12 world by teaching these skills. So I have 3 levels. Level 1 is really easy. You're probably already doing it, so you could feel really good about level 1. Level 2 is, medium, and then level 3 maybe a little bit more, but see what you think of incorporating some of these if you aren't already. So level 1, easy-ish to implement, but if you've got students like many of my students in the level 1 English class at the Delaware Area Career Center had not used a computer. They didn't know how to type. They were learning how to turn on the computer, how to access a website. So when I say this could be easy to implement, it really depends on your students. And some of you who are working with beginners, it might take months to do these things or more. So this isn't easy for everyone, but I think teaching typing is great, or helping your students find a good typing program to use at home. Secondly, providing organizers for school contacts, websites, and login information, and helping students log on to the school website and just helping them practice using the username and password. this thing of organizers, I think it seems really simple, but it is pretty simple, but it's like really important. If your students had a paper with all their school logons, all the websites that their students are supposed to use, it would help greatly and could make a pretty big difference for them. I have several different organizers that I thought were good. Like this one, maybe for the elementary school, just with a website, username and password, because many of the schools are using a lot of different learning websites like Lexia. And now truly the children are probably able to get on to all of them by now. But if parents are frustrated, or if there's other websites parents need to access, like to see their kids' grades, I have several different ones of these collected that I can send you on email. There's one of them that's more like geared toward a high school, with teachers and emails and stuff like that. So this is level 1 technology instruction. So quickly, could you guys, anyone who wants to share, I know Teresa has done a lot with tech education. If anyone has like a success story to share of using digital literacy with your students, I would love to hear that. I still can't hear you, Teresa. Put it in the chat. Also, if you want to put in the chat like what the tech level of your students is, I would be interested in where we're at with that. I got a voicemail from a parent early on in the school year that was actually the whole reason that I'm doing this presentation. The voicemail had a baby crying in the background, and the parent said, "Ms. Liz, I'm sorry to call you and bother you," which is, of course, she's not bothering me, but you know, some of our students feel like that. "Sorry to call you and bother you, but I really needed help with this home learning. I have no idea what to do. They give us a bunch of papers and websites, create username and password. It's just like pain in the ass. I'm sorry." And I just really felt for her because it was pretty hard for me to navigate my kids too. So Danielle says, "My students are super low level. It took weeks to learn how to get onto Zoom. Also, many are using phones, not computers. It makes all of it harder, especially those with poor eyesight." Yeah, I feel for you, Danielle, and I experienced that at my work with adult learners. A lot of students had very low tech levels. Teresa says, "We're now logging on to text. We now log into our text online." The ESL newspaper, send emails to other teachers, edit Word docs and Google Docs using Teams. So Teresa's been really developing this with her students over the past year or two. Nice job, Teresa. So I think incorporating these skills is really, really important for your students. So moving on just a little bit to the next level, let me share my screen, and we're going to look at a couple like level 2 things that you can try in your classroom. Again, do you have access to computers? Maybe or maybe not. Do your students bring devices? What are their tech skills already? And I know that not everyone can do all of these things with your students. But going on to the next level, which I would say is moderately easy to implement. Teaching students how to use the Google Suite, all of these apps, and I put the ones that are like the ones that I think are amazing and that I use the most, that I think would be most valuable for your students. Gmail, if they don't have a Gmail, help them get a Gmail. I think that that is one of the best things you can do with your students. Docs, slides, forms, calendar, and meets. All of these are really, really useful, and many schools are set up with the Google Suite. So if you begin to incorporate some of these in your lessons, then your students already have the advantage of being able to be familiar with what their kids are working with. I want to show you a amazing resource that if you were in my session last year on really great tech tools for adult ESOL students, I talked about this last year and I'm still really, really in love with it. Applied Digital Skills from Google. I'm going to go there so you can see it. Applied Digital Skills are lessons in tech that you can use with your students. And it's all very well laid out. It's all set up for you to just pick a lesson and do it. I will say, most of these lessons are way too complicated for people with tech, like low tech skills or low English skills. But these feature little videos I'm going to show you in a minute, which are great to work on your students listening. The videos have some tools that can do closed caption and be slowed down a little bit to make it more accessible for your lower level students. So let me just show you, if you go up, I'm on the top here on the top bar, teach, learn, lessons, and resources. I'm going to go to lessons. And again, I will put all of this in an email if you provide your email for me after our session. If you go over on the left side, you can filter by adult, you can filter by your grade level or adult learners. So you can click adult learners and it will show lessons in all of the different tools that Google offers. So say you want to teach your students about Gmail, you can click that and it will show you the different lessons that Google provides that use Gmail. Now, if you want to use Applied Digital Skills in this Google, basically just an archive of great tech lessons, I suggest starting with use digital tools for everyday tasks, because that one is really geared for people that are just learning to use digital tools. Let me go show you some of what the lessons are so you can see if this might work for some of your students that are new to Google. And again, this would be if you decide you want to use those Google apps like Gmail and Google Docs. So the lessons are on creating a Google account, and there's videos for each step. Set up a username, create a strong password using your Google account. There's all of these numbers are another task, and you can assign these to your students, show them the video, then they can work on it on their own. Use a document to write down and share information. I will show you just a little bit of this video about creating and naming a document, because I want to show you some of the tools that make this easier for English learners. There's a transcript. So you could print this and go over it with them. I think I actually want to go back to the use a document to write down and share information, because this would be the first, if you were doing a lesson on Google Docs and using Google Docs, this would be the first video to show about why you would use Google Docs.
When you are thinking of activities to do with a friend or coming up with any list of items.
So this whole series of lessons kind of goes on the idea that you're thinking of ideas to do with a friend and you're sharing ideas back and forth. So that's what she's talking about. So I want to show you that I have put on the captions and I've also put it on slow playback speed. I also have the transcript on there. So students could read along in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to turn the playback speed back to normal so we don't all go crazy and just show you a little bit of
remember
this.
To keep your list with you. Instead, you could take electronic notes in an online application like Google Docs. Typing in Google Docs is like taking notes in a notebook. But unlike a notebook, you can access Google Docs from any computer or mobile device with an internet connection. And you can share documents with others over the internet. In this activity, you will create a document in Google Docs. Think of different activities.
So I'm going to go ahead just a little bit.
Save as soon as safe location. Every time you log into your Google account, your document will be there, ready for you to read or add to. Everything you type in Google Docs is automatically saved as soon as you type it, as long as you are connected to the internet.
So I just want to point out, like, one reason why I love this, especially if you're doing virtual learning with your students. And again, the point of this is it's a twofer. Your students are learning this digital literacy, they're learning this skill, and they're also learning something that their children are using so they can help them. They're learning how to communicate with the school. They're learning how to use all of those apps that the school is using. And I love how at the top here, it highlights exactly what button they should click. I know a lot of students are still working on opening another tab and going back and forth between websites. Like, it may be really difficult for your students to go back and forth between the video conference that you have open and a Google Doc. But that's something that they can learn and we can teach them. And that is really, really useful for them. So I was hoping we'd have time for you to just investigate Google Applied Digital Skills a little bit on your own, but I don't think we're going to have time to do that today. But I hope that you'll check this out as something that you could potentially use with your students. If there's any questions or comments about Google's Applied Digital Skills, just think of it as a library of topics that are digital topics. They're real world. Some of them are easier, some of them are harder, but they're really great digital skills to use with your students since we're mostly teaching remotely now. Tessa, just let me know if anything comes up. I'm going to go ahead and go on to level 3.
Okay, you have some comments from Teresa. If you want to change the slides, I can kind of summarize here.
Sure.
She was giving some accolades to you and the ACC for teaching tech, and they reinforce those skills every week. She was wondering about the ethics of signing students up with Google because of their data harvesting practices. So that was something that she was concerned about.
Yeah.
She also said that she's left typing by the wayside at this point. It's more about, you know, if they can type at all, as opposed to typing quote unquote properly. And then also she kind of shares a little success story here where a husband came to visit during lunch, and even though he was a computer science professor, he didn't know about Google Docs. So this was something that his wife in the class knew that he didn't, and that was exciting for her.
That's awesome. Thanks, Teresa, for sharing all that. I said to my husband last night when I was getting a few more things ready, I feel really weird advertising for Google. Not necessarily because of the data harvesting. Thanks, Teresa. Now I feel weird about that too. But it was more just, it's a huge enterprise, and, you know, I'm usually rooting for the little guy, but I would say that Google has just pretty much revolutionized my tech life. I'm not particularly techie, and I've resisted a lot of changes in technology over the years. But the way that everything's interconnected, I think, can really help students. And so I'm going to be for it because it will help our students and it will help them do better communicating with their kids' school. So that was level 2, was using some of those Google apps. And level 3 is not as easy, but really important, because this is kind of the backbone of what schools are using. It is a learning management system. So that's just a place to house all the schoolwork, all the teachers' materials, communication. It's like a hub for the kids' class. And learning management systems, or every school uses them, and they are a little tricky to navigate. One of the biggest ones that's free that you could use is Google Classroom. There's another free one that's called Schoology that I will share in an email after this session that you could play around a little bit. But if you felt that it was worth a little bit, maybe a moderate amount of extra work on your part to use a learning management system, I think it would help your parents so much. And again, it's a 2-for-1 because it's helping them with their education, but it's also helping them connect to their children's education because all schools are using this. I want to show you just a little. My brain started to blow up after 1 minute of this video, because after 1 minute, I wouldn't use a lot of those things anyway. But I want you to see just a little bit of what Google Classroom could offer you in your virtual teaching. Again, Schoology is probably good too. That's what my school district uses, but I'm not as familiar with, like, you can get that for free as an individual teacher as well. So this is just a little introduction to Google Classroom and what you could do with this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there because we're almost finished with our session today. But I hope that I've given you a few ideas. Many of you are already using some of these, I'm sure. But just some resources that, as you're thinking about planning instruction, that could possibly help your parents get more connected with their children's education. Adult educators can play an invaluable role in helping adult learners stay connected by teaching digital literacy. And number 3, my third suggestion for how we can help these parents is just be yourself. Honestly, if you take nothing, if you don't implement one thing that we talked about today, just showing up and caring about your students and caring about their kids and talking to them about their lives, like, you guys are already doing that. And that's the most important thing, whether you change anything. I think the fact that we're all going through this time and we have a little bit extra to give somebody is really amazing. And I know some of you personally, and I know what you're giving to students. So you know what, if changing your email to Google and doing all that stuff is like, whew, if that seems really exhausting, just be yourself, and your students are really, really blessed to have you. So finally, I have my email up on the screen, and I would love to share some of these resources with you and a few others. If you're interested in that, you could just shoot me an email and I can kind of compile all of them and put everything into one email and share with you after this session. So it is 11 o'clock, and again, my email is my name, lizfronduty@gmail.com, and I will share some resources with you. Let me get out of screen share so I can see you guys. See if there's any more. Do you see anything else, Tessa?
There was one more comment that one of the benefits of Google is that a lot of the kids are using that too in their classrooms. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree. That's what we're using at my school, and I think it would help the adult learners a lot. So guys, I really appreciate you coming today and for all of your interaction. I really miss being with people in person, but I will say I like to see you without masks. That's nice.
Donna says, thank you so much, Liz. You're helping with your experience and expertise to bridge the gap between adult ed and K-12, and you're getting some more thank yous coming in. So
yeah, cool. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you coming. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.